Welcome back to The Great Detour. I can't believe it. This is episode 20. 20. That went by so fast, guys. When I started the show, honestly, I wasn't sure where it would lead. I just knew that I wanted to have honest conversations about how life doesn't go according to plan and those moments that force us to slow down, shift direction, and ultimately find a new way forward and really find a way to come home to ourselves. And I have been so lucky to have had so many meaningful conversations with my guests along the way. And I have been learning, unlearning, and healing right alongside you. So whether you've been here since the first episode or just found the show, thank you so much. Seriously, I am so glad you're here. Today, I'm sitting down with Leah Brathwaite, a soul advisor, founder of the Live Free Lifestyle, and author of A New Way of Life, a guide for transformation from living a lie to freeing your soul. From the moment we connected, I could tell Leah was an old soul. She brings this calm, steady presence and a quiet clarity that can only come from lived experience. And her story is a powerful one and also deeply relatable. In this episode, Leah shares what it took to walk away from a life that looked perfect on paper, but felt completely misaligned for her. We talk about the moment that everything shifted, the process of reconnecting with your truth, and how to start trusting your intuition, especially when it's guiding you somewhere unexpected. We also get into solo seasons, self-abandonment, and the beauty of building a life that actually feels like yours, and that always feels really, really good. If you've been enjoying the show so far, I'd also love if you subscribed or left a 5-star rating or review. It helps more people find The Great Detour and allows these conversations to have an even greater impact. And with that, here's my conversation with the lovely Leah Brathwaite. Welcome to The Great Detour. I'm Jess, your host. In this podcast, we talk about life's unplanned paths, those experiences that challenge and transform us in ways we never expected. Through honest conversations, my guests and I share inspiring stories and practical advice to help you navigate your own journey. I hope these stories inspire you to trust your path, embrace change with resilience, and step into your most authentic, empowered self. Leah Brathwaite, welcome to The Great Detour.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to have this conversation with you today.
I am so excited too. And I said this to you before, but I love your name. It sounds like a celebrity name to me.
Well, thank you very much. I didn't really have anything to do with it, but I appreciate it. I'll pass it on to my parents.
It's just giving me Hollywood vibes. I absolutely love it. But Leah, you and I met on the gram and you slid into my DMs, and one of your first communications was a voice memo, and I immediately knew that we would be kindred spirits. I absolutely love it because anybody who knows me knows that voice memos are my love language.
Same.
They're the best, right? You can really pick up on somebody's energy, and I love that that's just how you started it off.
Totally. Actually, that's how I started it off with my partner. So I think there's something to the voice notes. You can feel the resonance of somebody through them.
You really can. And I could feel your energy, and you just had such a soulful, grounded energy. So it was a really nice connection. And then I was able to look through your page, and it just seemed like we were kindred spirits and soul sisters. So I'm so excited that we get to have this conversation and to have you on the show. And since then, I have read the book. I am so excited. It was amazing. It's called A New Way of Life, a guide for transformation from living a lie to freeing your soul. And it was awesome, Leah. I love that it was part memoir, but also part guidebook. So as I was reading it, not only was I hearing your story, but you were kind of coaching me along the way. So it was a really, really great read.
I'm so glad you enjoyed it. I poured so much of myself into that, and knowing that this will help at least one person not have to suffer or struggle the same way that I did. So I'm glad that it resonated and that you enjoyed it.
Absolutely. I had so many moments of resonance throughout it. I think that we have a lot of parallels in our lives, and I think that's probably why we were drawn to each other. But it was a really, really great experience reading it, and I can't wait to dig into it a little bit more today. And, where I wanted to start was really your detour story, or kind of your detour coming back home to yourself. So there was a moment in the book, it was a very pivotal moment in your life where you were in your kitchen and you heard this thought clear as day in your head that said, "Not for another second."
Yeah.
Take us back to what was going on in your life at that time that led up to that moment.
So this is what I call an oh shit moment, where you're having this awakening and you're like, oh shit, something is happening. Something is here. And in that moment, I was standing in the dream kitchen that I had picked out all of the beautiful finishes for of this dream home that we had just finished building. And I had a spiritual awakening. I thought I was losing my mind in that moment. I write about that in the book, but I heard an audible voice. And I was alone in the kitchen at that moment. I had just gotten back from the groceries. I was putting things away. And that voice said, "Not for another second." And I could feel these two parts of myself. There was this sound that I could hear and that I could feel. And then there was also the me that was like holding kale, putting it in the fridge. And I was like, what is happening here? And then I heard it again, like as an echo, "Not for another second." And it was like these two parts separated, and I could see myself in my life, and I could see everything in my kitchen. I could see into the living room. I could see everything was like perfectly curated. It was everything that I thought that I had wanted. And I felt so empty, and I felt so alone. I felt like I was in somebody else's life, and I was just like, wait, how did I get here? I knew that I had made every one of the decisions that had gotten me there, but I felt like I wasn't a part of any of them. And so that was this really powerful, pivotal moment that gave me the opportunity to say, like, okay, I can keep going down this path. Actually, I couldn't keep going down this path. That's basically what it was saying. It was like, we can't keep doing this, not for another second. And when I tried to imagine, like, okay, this is a really inconvenient time for me to be having this like breakdown, mental breakdown. Can we just like put this off? And the thought of like another second was just unlivable. And so as I'm going through this mental turmoil in my kitchen, still holding my vegetables in my hand, my husband at the time walked in and kind of saw me looking probably like I had just seen a ghost because I was very confused. And he was like, "Are you okay?" And that was one of the very first moments where I finally told the truth. In the past, I would have been like, "Yep, I'm fine." I would have passed it off, like not wanting anybody to know that anything was happening. And I said, "I don't think so. Something's happening. I think I need to see a therapist." And there was like just this full body exhale that happened after that, because it was like, finally, I am telling the truth. I'm actually not okay. Something needs to change here. And that was the beginning of this awakening journey, this exploration, and this, as you said before, this coming back home to myself, to my true self, which is what I call my soul, and allowing that to be the guide in my life instead of what I was letting determine my life before that.
It was such a big turning point for you. I'm curious, before you had that moment where it just came through so clearly, like an audible voice, were there whispers in your life prior to that that you kind of pushed off or ignored?
Girl, let me tell you, there were so many whispers. And I think we all have those moments where we're about to do something, or we're about to say something, or something's about to happen. And there's like this internal voice that's quiet, that's like, no. And then we're like, I'm going to do it anyway. It's like saying yes when you really don't want to, like going to school for something that you're not passionate about, but that it like makes sense. There's always these little whispers, these feelings that we have that we tend to ignore if we're conditioned in a certain way. So I was conditioned to be a people pleaser. I was conditioned to be a good Christian girl. I was conditioned to be a perfectionist, to be a high achiever, to excel, and to not show any weakness. Feelings were not safe in my family growing up. And so I had adopted this version of myself that was a high achiever, that was motivated, that always had a smile, that got straight A's, that did all of the things right, that did the expected things. And that was a version of me that wasn't aligned with who I actually was. And so that's where the disconnect happened. I had built an entire life from this version that wasn't actually me, but it seemed to make sense. So many whispers along the way, and they eventually kept getting louder and louder and louder. And as the book goes on, like there were so many things that started to fall apart because I just was like, la la la, I'm not listening, and trying to pretend everything was perfect instead of really telling the truth.
I feel like that's such a universal thing where the nudges come and it's just so easy to push them to the side because you're so into the routine that you have for your life and so focused on the plan that you set out for yourself or that society or your family has set out for yourself. And it's easy to just tune everything out. And then you almost lose sight of or forget what your soul and your intuition sounds like. So you tune it out, but then things keep falling apart and then they keep falling apart. And I feel like it's the universe, God's way of being like, hey, I'm trying to get your attention. And it seems like it's a bad thing at the time when things are crumbling, but it's actually when things are being cleared so that they can come back together. But there are so many things in your story that resonated with me. I too grew up in the church and, nothing against organized religion, but it was just an area for me where there was just a lot of repression and just certain things just weren't aligned with me. And then I ended up marrying somebody from the church and just being in a partnership at a very young age that I felt like, all right, this works. I guess this is it. And committing to that and then being married for a period of time and just feeling so unfulfilled and so lost. So when I was reading your story, I was like, oh my gosh, did the same thing because you grew up in a church community as well, correct?
Yes. And the repression is so real. Like, especially the community that I grew up in, it's very restrictive. So if you're not in the church, then you're not in the church. Then those are people out, like they're outsiders, they're worldly people.
Secular.
There's like a name for them. Yeah. And so to protect the integrity of the church, you have to do everything in the church. You have to be friends with people in the church. You have to marry people in the church. Like it's very a close-knit community. And when there's the threat of excommunication, or they call it disfellowshipping, if you leave, nobody's able to talk to you. So if you've been raised in this environment, your entire life, your world is wrapped up into this viewpoint and into this community, it's a dangerous thing to have independent thought. It's a dangerous thing to follow your intuition. It's a dangerous thing to question things because it will get you kicked out. And if you get kicked out, you lose everything. So there's a measure of fear that will keep you indoctrinated in this way, even if it doesn't feel aligned. It's a huge gamble. It's a huge risk. It's a huge act of courage and an act of faith to trust yourself, to listen to that, to leave if it doesn't feel aligned. And I think there's a lot of people who find themselves in situations where the fear is just greater than the possibility of fulfillment, than the possibility of what their life can be. They just can't see anything beyond that. And that's why I stayed for 30 years. Like I tried to leave at one point and then I was like, I don't think I can do it. It was too scary. So I have a huge amount of compassion for people who find themselves trapped in these situations, whether it's a church, whether it's a relationship or a job that feels incredibly repressive, but they keep choosing it because they're too afraid to choose something different. But at the same time, there is another side to it. And if you're courageous enough, if you allow yourself to be open enough, you can create everything that you desire outside of what you've been conditioned to believe is the only way to do things.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think fear can be so paralyzing. It can just keep you stuck. I remember feeling the same way about exiting my marriage. I was with my ex for 17 years. We were high school sweethearts. I couldn't conceive of a life where he wasn't in it or where I wasn't a partner. And I remember just considering the option at certain points and being like, oh my God, it's just this blank, empty canvas. What is that going to look like? And it was terrifying, paralyzing. And it took me a long time to get to that point where I actually filed for divorce. But I remember that feeling. I do, similar to you, I have a lot of compassion for people who are in that place too, because it is daunting. But sometimes it takes the pain to be great enough to really push you to take that brave step. And you did take that brave step in so many ways, from your career to your marriage to leaving the church. So talk to me a little bit about what it felt like to leave all these really like core parts of your identity behind.
Well, I think, like we were talking about before, there's always whispers. There were always points where I was like, this isn't the thing, but I don't know what else to do, because if I don't do it, then I don't know who I'm going to be. And I'm not ready to face that. So all of these things that I ended up leaving, it wasn't initially from a courageous act. It got to that place where, there's always going to be that threshold, but you're given that threshold to leap through so many times in so many ways. Whispers, this doesn't feel right. You should break up with this person before you get married and like build houses and like.
You had those whispers?
I had like little whispers all along the way, but I was like, well, if I do that, then everything's going to fall apart. So I just kept building on top of this like castle of sand. But eventually what happens, and this is my core belief, I've had many clients who have come to me in the same situation where the more you disregard the whispers, the louder they get. So I had this awakening, this oh shit moment in my kitchen that was like the final straw about my marriage and my church and all of that. But before that, I was misaligned in my career. I had a desire to travel, to teach, to explore, to design, to be creative. And I chose to be a dental hygienist because that was the thing that was guaranteed to make me money. It was practical, it was stable, safe. People will always have teeth. I will always have a job. I won't ever have to worry about anything. And I made that sacrifice, or I abandoned myself. That was one of the very first big decisions where I was like, okay, I'm going to go to school and I'm going to do this. And it was in opposition to what I had actually desired for myself. So over time, out of nowhere, I developed this disabling nerve condition that ended the career for me. I didn't have any other option. And that was the start of starting to wake up, because I realized, okay, I had identified with being a registered dental hygienist, working in dentistry, like having my own chair, working in a really beautiful office. And I didn't know who I was without it. There was a part of me that was like, okay, I know I'm not my job, because obviously I'm still alive and I'm still here, even though I can't do my job. But I don't know who I am without the title. I don't know who I am if somebody asks, what do you do? If I don't have a thing to do, then I don't have value. And so that was the beginning of this identification with this other part of myself. I went to the self-help section in the bookstore. Even though I was so ashamed to be there, I was like, oh my God, I hope nobody sees me here. I don't want anybody to know that I'm struggling.
And now you're on a self-help podcast.
But that was like the original brave act. I took a book off the shelf. I read it. I learned some things. I learned about meditation. But because I was still deeply ingrained in the religion that I was in, I was afraid that if I followed that path of self-discovery, I knew if I pull this thread, the whole sweater is going to unravel. And I'm not ready for that. I'm just dealing with chronic pain and like potentially losing the loss of like function in my hand. I can only handle one big thing at a time. So the career was the first thing that was like this wham, like a wake up call. I had not listened to any of the whispers. In fact, I literally and like belligerently denied any of them. And then eventually it came as like so much dis-ease in my body, so much dissonance against my truth, that it was like, okay, there has to be a manifestation of this energy somehow. When you're out of alignment, it goes somewhere. It doesn't just disappear. You can't just hide it as much as you're like, if I pretend everything's okay. So that energy moves through you and gets trapped in places when it's not flowing effectively. So first, it was that. I had a glimpse of like the potential of a future outside of the confines of what I had been raised in, but I was still too afraid. So continued to build, continued to create, continued to do as much as I could to try to numb the feeling of who am I? I don't know, but maybe this new purse is going to help, or maybe this vacation is going to help, or maybe if I move into a bigger house, I'm going to feel whole. I'm going to feel fulfilled. I'm going to feel like I have meaning. So I chased that for a while until this kitchen moment where it was like, no, not for another second. We cannot keep doing this. I had everything I had ever thought I was supposed to have. I followed the checklist. I went to school. I got a job. I got married. We had a dog. We went on vacations. My closet was amazing and empty. Spiritually, emotionally, physically, and mentally bankrupt.
I feel like it's a story we hear so often, people chasing this checklist and then just feeling empty inside. So what happened after that moment? What did you do after that?
I continued to take 10 seconds of courage at a time and like follow the things that felt real. I kept telling the truth. Instead of pretending I was okay, I was like, I'm actually not. The first thought came to me was like, I think I need to go to a therapist. I think I've got some things that I need to work on. And in that very first therapy session, the question that like changed my life that I never really ever thought of was, she asked me, what do you want? And I was like, well, I want everybody around me to be happy. And she was like, okay, but if there was nobody around you, what would you want for yourself? And I was like, no, brain is broken. I have no idea what you're talking about. I've never considered this before in my life. I just know what I'm supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I don't actually know what I want. So then the next part was discovering, like, what do I want? What makes me happy? What do I actually feel interested about? And it was just following those little breadcrumbs. At first, it was like design, and then it was, oh, well, I follow a lot of people on Instagram, which Instagram was actually quite helpful in this process. And I was noticing that I was really drawn to yoga. I was drawn to yogis, and I was drawn to that sort of stuff, which was something that was kind of shamed or looked down upon in my religion. Mm-hmm. So that was another brave act of being like, you know what? I know we're technically not supposed to do this, but I want to. Like, this feels like something that I want to explore. And that started opening things up for me. Yoga has been such a powerful way for me to come back to myself, to learn about my energy, my spirituality, my embodiment. And really, that was one of the big catalysts that opened my eyes to a completely different way of living, one that was more spiritual, not religious, but one that attuned me to a feeling of God that I never, ever felt while I was at church. This internal source that is something that I can access. And so when I say my soul, it's that divine spark that is in me, that is animating my life. It's in everyone. It's the resonance that we feel with everybody. This beautiful, like, unifying energy that is aligning us to our highest path, that is aligning us to everything that is meant for us. And when we can really live from that place instead of all of the fears and the conditioning and the this is who I should be or whatever, that's when we get to experience what it truly feels like to be fulfilled, but what it truly feels like to be free in our lives and to be the most us that we can possibly be.
It's a really beautiful thing when you come to that moment and you go inward. And it was very similar for me, where I tapped into my soul and discovered spirituality in a very organic, like, subtle way. It was never, nobody taught me about it. It was similar to you, where I just had these sparks of curiosity, and I would hear something in a podcast or I'd read something in a book and I'd be like, oh, that's really interesting. I want to know more. And then you just keep, like you said, just like keep following those sparks, and that feels good. And then it just grows and grows from there. And I feel like you start attracting the different people and circumstances and activities and things that are more aligned with you. And it's just a beautiful process when you say yes to that curiosity. It leads you, I think, to the places that you're meant to go.
100%. Like, that's the whole ethos of everything that I teach, all of the work that I do, the way I live my life, is when you follow your soul, it will lead you to a life beyond your wildest dreams, because the logic of your mind can't orchestrate the incredible serendipitous synchronicities that are the magic of life, but your unique frequency can. Like us meeting through just like a quick little blip on Instagram. I think you followed me and I was like, who is this person? Oh my God, I love her stuff. Let me send her a voice note. Things like that. Me following that impulse, you following your impulse, and here we are now. That's how life is supposed to be. It's this collaborative, co-creative experience that is magic when you allow yourself to, like you said, follow those breadcrumbs. Like, your curiosity and your imagination are two of the most powerful creative forces that you have access to.
100%.
Your curiosity is how your soul is, like, speaking to you. It's like, go this way. How about over here? What about this? And if you're brave enough to follow those things, or if you're clear enough to hear them, meaning you're not so in your mind, you have found like a way to be still and to connect to the voice of your soul, then it speaks louder, more frequently. And then life becomes this really magical thing. But we have not been taught how to access our own internal wisdom. We've really been programmed to outsource it, to measure it up against others. We learn this as kids in school, ABC, like, what grade are you getting? How smart are you? And what does your family's like situation look like compared to others? So we're constantly in this externally focused comparative experience rather than, what do I actually want? Where do I feel called to go? What feels alive for me? And the beauty of that is that when we move from that place, we all get to experience our own versions of success and fulfillment. It's not just this one thing of like, marry a doctor, get rich, or whatever it is, like the checklist that is like what we're taught to aspire to. So it really is like that moment, like you said, when you turn inward and you start referencing from your own self that you do get to live the life that you were always meant to live. Otherwise, we're just chasing these like external metrics that we think are the things we're supposed to have. But once we get there, we feel so unfulfilled. So many of the powerful, like high achieving women that I work with are like, I have so much going for me in my life and I can't even enjoy any of it. Like none of it feels like it's mine. None of it feels like it even matters. Like what's the point? So those three questions of like, who am I? What do I want? And what am I meant to do? That's like the work of our lifetime to figure that out and to live as that, because that is what we came here for.
It really is. And it's so powerful. And we forget to ask those questions. And you were saying it so well just before, but there's not one roadmap that we're all supposed to take. We're all on our unique journeys. But I think the way we grow up, it's, college, marriage, good job, kids. And we all just aspire to that without taking a moment to stop and do what you did in therapy and ask, what do I want? Like really, and it's hard when you sit back and ask yourself that question. It might take some time to really figure out what you want. It kind of reminds me of when I first got divorced. I remember I called my best friend, one of my best friends, and I was like, how the heck do you be single? Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And she was like, Jess, just make a list of all the things you've always wanted to try or were curious about, never really got a chance to, and just start doing them. Like if you wanted to garden, go try gardening. If you wanted to take like a workout class, try that and just see what sparks your excitement. And I was like, what a great idea to just take some time to get to know myself and like what resonates with me. But it is a practice that I think, especially women, we're so used to people pleasing and doing things that are going to make others happy, keep the peace, that we forget about ourselves. So I think it's such an important thing to ask, like, what is it that I want? And then just going back to intuition, that's something I love to talk about on this show that always comes up is just tapping into your inner guidance system and your inner knowing. And it's such a huge theme in your book too, but we all have it. I think I saw it somewhere maybe on Instagram, somewhere online that it says, in religion, we call it spirit. In science, we call it energy. And in the streets, we call it vibes, but it's all the same thing. It's that gut feeling, that knowing, those little whispers that pull you in certain directions. And then you just take that first step in those breadcrumbs. And what's that expression? I think Rumi says it, as you step on the way appears. It's just how it works. You just have to follow those intuitive nudges. So for you, the next step for you, you went to therapy, you started investing in yourself and exploring yoga, meditation. And I'm a big believer in those types of activities because I think they really, like you said, allow you to like get in your body, but also the stillness. That's when you can really hear yourself. And so from there, you started to get more guidance and you made some big decisions after that as well, as far as your marriage went.
Yeah. So when I stopped outsourcing all of my decision making on like the construct of a religion or how things look to others, it became abundantly clear that the marriage that I was in was not what it was supposed to be. And it's funny because when we got divorced, our relationship expanded. We became like friends because I didn't have an expectation of him as a husband. He didn't have me nagging at him. So sometimes like things are going to shift, like relationship dynamics are going to transform. Everything in your life is going to change if you change. And that's sometimes the thing that we fear the most of like, I don't know what's going to happen on the other side of that. But that's also where we get to create consciously. We get to make decisions from this intuitive, like inner knowing, this inner wisdom, instead of trying to make everything fit into a box. Like we were just to circle back to that idea of like, we all have our own unique paths, but we're all trying to fit into this one framework so that we don't stick out, so that we don't like, you know what I mean? So that we fit in. But truly, nobody's able to actually belong when we're constantly trying to pretend to be somebody that we're not. We're constantly hiding parts of ourselves to be acceptable. But when you allow yourself to be fully expressed, that's when you start to attract the things that are in resonance with that full expression. And so the conflict that was in my marriage dissolved when we were no longer in that construct of marriage. And so many things started to open up after that. But the idea of intuition is something that I think we want to know the answer before we take the step. Like as humans, we just want security. We're like literally hardwired to be safe. And it feels really unsafe when we don't know what's going to happen. So learning to trust that intuition, first of all, learning to access it, knowing that it's even there. And like you said, everybody has it. We all have it. And then learning to trust it and recognizing that you only get the next step once you've taken the step that you're on. And we're usually standing on the step and we're like, I would like to know exactly where this goes and how it's going to end and what's the plan here. And the plan is this co-creative experience with the universe. So the first step of going to therapy opened this other step of deciding what I want, which opened this other step of realizing this is not what I want, which opened another step of like, oh, actually, this is what I want. And so the continuation of the journey goes step by step as you follow those curiosities and intuitions. And then that opens up the next thing. And then it's this miraculous unfolding of your life instead of just the plan of like, I work at the same place for 30 years. I do the same thing. And then maybe when I'm 60, I retire. And if I'm in good health, I'll be able to enjoy that time. You get to live fully the entirety of your life instead of just relegating it to the last like few years that you have available.
What did it look like for you when you really started to trust yourself and trust your intuition?
It looked like a lot of fear, to be honest. I was like, oh, this isn't what I've been doing. This isn't why is nobody else doing it this way? So it really does take you into a deeper connection with yourself. But I also find a deeper connection with God, source, universe, like infinite wisdom, whatever you want to call it, because you recognize that you are always supported. But those first few times that you're learning to trust your intuition, I don't know why I didn't start doing like smaller things like whispers. I was like, oh, I know, I'll get divorced. Oh, I know, I'll move. Or I know, like I was doing the big things.
Go
The
big or go home.
I was like, I think I've wasted enough time here. Let's just start listening.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to have another disabling condition. Let's just pay attention.
Yeah.
But when you're not used to it, your fear gets activated with that intuition. So you're going to have like a bit of time where you need to start differentiating the difference between anxiety and intuition. And that is a really delicate balance because all of our sensations pass through our one nervous system. Yes, we are spiritual beings. We are also human beings. So we have these two parts of ourselves, our soul and our human, that are needing to learn how to work in synergy and needing to understand the differentiation of like, okay, fear sounds like this, doubt sounds like this. Those are all aspects of the ego, of the protective personality, of the small self, whatever you want to call it. My human, I call it like, oh, I'm humaning big time over here. There's a lot of material that's happening. Whereas your intuition is a knowing. It's clear. It doesn't have a lot of explanation around it. It's very simple. And so we think that simple doesn't mean valuable. We think like, oh, if there's like loud noises and big energy, that must be the thing. But actually, your intuition is going to be that quietness, that stillness, that knowing that you don't know how you know, but you know and you can't explain it. And then your mind is going to come in and be like, well, we need to explain it. And so starting to differentiate like, okay, there's more of like a calmness when I follow my intuition. My mind will kick up after I have an intuitive thought, but that mind chatter isn't truth. It's just survival. And so how can I, like, what do I need to be courageous in this moment to follow that truth? And so the processes of like stabilizing your connection with yourself, like all of the work that we do inside of like the Live Free lifestyle or the Live Free methodology that's inside of my book, like really solidifying your relationship with yourself so that when the intuition comes, you can move, you know that you're supported, you open up all of these infinite timelines and pathways that are available to you, and you start to live in this really flowing place. But there's always going to be a next level that's going to require you to trust deeper into that intuition. It's not something that you do once and then you're good. It's like a continual expansion of your capacity to hold more of life in you.
Yeah, I don't think there's ever mastery. It's a constant growth process and evolution, but I love that description of anxiety versus intuition because that's been my experience too, where my fear and my anxiety will be a sense of urgency and just like it's more fearful, where my intuition, it's quieter, but it's consistent, and it'll just nudge, nudge, and it'll just keep coming quietly. And so I've kind of learned over time to trust that. And you also learn like how it feels in your body too, when it's intuition versus anxiety. And it's just kind of learning to trust yourself. And then sometimes you do get it wrong. It's a process of learning how to trust yourself. That's been one of the biggest things in my growth journey, is learning to trust my truth. I used to outsource everything. Anytime I had a question or needed to make a decision, I'd ask my family, my friends, and everybody. And now I get quiet and really try to tap into how I'm feeling about that situation or that thing I need an answer to. And, sometimes I will consult people because I respect their opinions. But at the end of the day, the decision is mine. And I really go with that gut feeling. Another thing I do, which I love that I don't know anybody else who does this, but you brought it up in your book, where you ask for signs. Tell me about that. I loved it.
Okay, so the caveat that I have to say with signs is that you don't ask for it before you make a movement, but you ask for it to confirm that you're on the right path.
Exactly.
So if you're waiting for a sign like, okay, well, if this thing happens, then I'll move, like that's not how it works. The universe has to have an energy to respond to, and your energy in motion, or the emotion that you are emitting as you're moving, is what draws the signs to you. So early on, I was like, okay, I just need to know that I'm okay. Like, am I completely fucking up my life right now? I made some really big decisions, and I just want somebody to tell me I'm going to be okay. And so I thought about like, what could be a sign that I would see that would let me know? And I wanted to pick something that wasn't obvious, that was like not something that I would see in my immediate surroundings. And so I chose a frog. And I started to see them appearing in the most random places, like on the billboard of a truck that just happens to like go through a red light that I see. And I was like, okay, that looked like a sign, but maybe that wasn't a sign. Maybe that was just a coincidence.
I always do that too. I need a sign of your sign.
A sign of your sign, exactly. And then I'd be in the grocery store and I open a box of eggs and it's got like that little frog symbol on it, or things like that. And so I started seeing those, and it would just be like, okay, this feels crazy. Like, I'm sure even my parents, like my mother is like asking me like, are you okay? And I'm like, I think I'm fine. I saw a frog. We're good. You can use like angel numbers, and those are beautiful reminders too. When I see those passing around, I choose to see those as signs. So life is always happening all around us, and it's the tuning in that, and like your awareness and your perception, that allows you to see these signs. These things are happening all around us all the time, and they're given to let us know you're on the right path. You're going to be okay. Just keep going.
I love it because I think it forces you to pay attention. We are always getting guidance and support. And half the time we're just too in the zone and focused on whatever's going on in our heads to notice it. But I do the same thing. I'll ask for specific signs, but I'll never forget when I was in the process of getting divorced. I didn't know what I was doing. I was like so overwhelmed. I've never gotten divorced before and had to divide my assets and figure all that out. And I remember distinctly sitting on my mom's sofa one day, and I was on the phone with a mediator that I was considering. And I'm like, is this the right move? Like, should I be using a mediator? What am I doing? And I remember I was like, please God, just like give me a sign. I don't know what I'm doing. And I look outside the window, and two cardinals come and land on a branch right outside the window. And they sit there for a minute, and then they go and they fly in opposite directions. And I was like, all right, wow. I'm doing this. We're good. And it was just one of those moments where I was like, okay, this is the right decision. I'm not alone. We're never alone. I'm being guided. So let me just take this next step, and the rest will figure itself out. But yeah, I think it's always great to ask for those confirmation signals, because it's hard to trust ourselves. It's nice to get a little divine guidance along the way.
Yeah, especially when you're going your own path. Like when you are fully free, there's no reference points. There's no like, oh, well, how does she do it? Because if you're following somebody else's path, then that's not your path. That's the path you're following. That's somebody else's path. So exactly. You're constantly creating your path. That Rumi quote, as you begin walking, the way appears. Like you create it with your attention, your intention, and the way that you are moving through the world, paying attention.
Mm-hmm. One other thing that stood out to me in your book was you had mentioned after your divorce, you kind of jumped into a new relationship pretty quickly. And you immediately knew like, oh, this isn't really right for me. But, it was comfortable. And after being in a relationship for so long, it's nice to be in another one. And I was very similar. As soon as I got divorced, didn't know how to be alone, right on the dating apps. Like, God help me. I look back on myself and I'm like, girl, what were you doing? But you had mentioned, and I thought it was really, really powerful and insightful, that there's a necessary period of solitude after coming out of a marriage or any type of like long-term relationship. And what did that look like for you? And how did that help your healing journey?
Well, I think immediately I was like, okay, I'm divorced. I'm healed. Like, I know my shit. I'm good. Let's just do this. I can totally do this. And I think that's like, again, the ego of like, well, I know how to do this type of thing. So I'm going to try to do it again. And like you were saying, like, I didn't want to be alone. And I think that is a necessary thing. If there's like a fear of being alone, or if like you hate being alone or you don't want to be alone and you're trying to avoid being alone, that's when you need it the most. Because if you continue to like avoid looking at the places that are uncomfortable within you, they're always going to have power over you. They're always going to be causing you to repeat the same patterns over and over again. And one of my really big patterns was self-abandonment. I would abandon myself.
Same girl, same.
I'm like, I'll just do what you do. I'll just have what you're having. Like, I'll just do whatever you say, because it was too terrifying to me to take ownership of my own life. So I just wanted to like slip into somebody else's, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could be the girlfriend. It's fine. I don't have to have my own say. I don't have to have my own decision-making process. And so I think personally that it's really important to discover these things for yourself so that you know what your own true frequency sounds like, feels like, resonates as. And from that place, you're able to find more aligned experiences. It doesn't mean right away you're going to find like the perfect partner. I think every relationship, every situation that we're in, even if it's quote unquote the wrong one, it's an opportunity for us to learn. It's an opportunity for us to like say, okay, how did I get here? Were there things that I was avoiding, or were there things that I wasn't paying attention to? Was I trying to escape something, or was I trying to get something? It's a very different energy when you're feeling lack, when you're feeling in avoidance, or when you're feeling like you want to not experience something, versus consciously and confidently choosing and deciding, no, this is what I want because I want it, not because I'm lacking something. So for me, it was really important to come into a space where I was like, I can be okay on my own, and I love myself on my own. I don't feel lack on my own. I love my own company. I have my own friends. I have my own life. I have my own furniture. That was such a big thing for me to be like, I picked everything in this place.
Mm-hmm.
It is all a reflection of me. It's not like, what does he want or what does he like, which is very much a pattern that I operated from. So for me, I think it was that solidifying my own integrous frequency so that I can know like what is actually in resonance to me, instead of like, I don't feel complete, so I'm just going to settle for this, or I don't feel okay, so I'm going to do this. It's really much more powerful when you can come from a place of security, wholeness, and self-love, and then you offer so much more, and then you receive so much more. So for me, that was a really important part, one that I really did not want to participate in. I was like, just, I'll take anything. I got, it was a hot mess express. But it was also one of the most empowering moments of my life, because I realized I can choose myself. I can stand up for myself. I can be with myself. And I'm a safe place for me to come back to. I don't need to hide in somebody else. And that was a really necessary aspect of my journey, for sure.
It has been for me as well. And I think that's the place from which you call in aligned partnership. When you've done that work, when you're okay on your own, and you've like heightened your frequency because you know who you are. And I feel like for so long I was looking, I just thought, oh, I just married the wrong person. I just need to find my person and I'll be good. But really all along, the person I was looking for was myself. And it took me a minute to get there. But once you get there, and it's not perfect, there's times where it's lonely and it's hard, but it's also such a beautiful, empowering place. And you're choosing the partner you choose from that place is because you genuinely want to be with that person, not because you are lonely and coming from a lack mentality. But I'm curious, so you are in aligned partnership now.
Yes.
I have not gotten to that chapter yet. I've heard when you've gone from, being divorced to going into a healthy relationship, it can be quite confronting at times. Was it like challenging for you to finally get into a healthy?
Okay, so that's not in this book. It's going to be the second one.
I'm waiting for it.
So that idea of like coming to a relationship in wholeness, and it doesn't mean perfection. Let me tell you, I have worked on some things with this man that were far from perfect. But when you're coming from a place of wholeness, of knowing who you are, and you meet somebody who has done that same work and they know who they are, it becomes this really beautiful healing experience. And there's just so, like, we could talk for another 3 hours about how wonderful this relationship is, because we've both done so much of our own work. We've both done so much of our own growth and healing. And I don't think the healing ever ends. There's like, I used to think like, oh, I'm like totally healed now. Like I have been on my own. I've done all these things. Look at me go. And then this beautiful man comes in and I'm like, oh, I don't know how to receive. I don't know how to let you in. This feels really confronting and really uncomfortable. And there were parts that I didn't want to be seen. Like I didn't want to be like the messy person who is emotional. Turns out I actually am a little bit moody. And when I was by myself, I didn't know that. And so having to regulate and having to be witnessed in your life is such confronting thing. And it is also the most beautiful and affirming thing at the same time. So while it's like there's a certain amount of healing that I think is required for us to do, it's our own responsibility to get like our side of the street clean. When we come into an aligned partnership, we get to clean up the things that we couldn't see on our own. It's like you have a mirror that's in front of you and you're like, oh my God, is that what I look like? Oh my God, I had no idea. And you're like, oh, okay, there's some cleanup on aisle 5 that's necessary in some areas, but being held in a safe place and then also knowing that you have safety within yourself allows for that growth to be just a really beautiful deepening of love.
It is a beautiful thing. I think there's some healing that can only happen alone. And that's why that period of solitude is always necessary. But then there's some healing that can only happen in relationship as well, because it's that mirror, like you said. So I'm like looking forward to aligned partnership, but at the same time, I'm like, oh man, I know I got more in store for me.
It doesn't just end. It's not like, oh, forever, happily ever after. I mean, it's so strange because it is, but it's also like, and you're kind of getting out some of your kinks still.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So let's fast forward to today. Your life looks friggin' amazing. Just joy filled. You're doing what you love, coaching women. If you're any example of what following your soul looks like, sign us all up, seriously. But talk to me a little bit about the live free lifestyle and how you're helping women in your coaching programs.
Yeah, so this is the methodology that I developed through my own experimentation, through like being 30 years old, depressed, disabled, divorced, everything crumbling and being like, what the actual F? Like, who am I? What do I want? What am I supposed to be doing? Because it wasn't that. And so I took myself through these processes, or I codified this process based on my journey of doing all of the personal development work, the shadow work, the metaphysical work, studying, researching. I was disabled for many years, so it was my full-time job. My personal development, luckily enough for me, I was able to dedicate my entire life to it. Like, how do I figure this out? So $150,000 in personal development later, like a huge investment into myself allowed me to really have a tangible and proven and practical methodology that other people can follow. And not to say you follow my path, but this framework that you pour your own self into helps you come out on the other side, this liberated, empowered, joy-filled, like soul-led woman or man. There's a few men that have been brave enough to go through it.
Oh,
but
great.
I mostly work with women. The men that I work with are usually in a one-to-one container, but it's a group experience that allows you to transform in a short amount of time, but in a really profound way. So it's a 10-week experience that takes you through the 8 steps of the methodology. There's nervous system support in there as well, so that you can like start to differentiate, like, wait, where is these signals coming from? There's like guided meditations. There's like just really practical advice, because one of the things that I found on my spiritual journey was that there's a lot of like heady woo-wooey things that I loved. Like, don't get me wrong, I love that stuff so much.
I love the woo.
I like pull cards. I love all of that stuff. And then I'm like, how do I be a human with this? And so there's really practical, tangible things for you to anchor into and practice. And then the methodology becomes a lifestyle. It's not like a one and done. So it's not for people who want a quick fix or who just want to like manifest a whatever it is. It's an evolutionary manifestation of your best life because you're living as your full, free, aligned self. So I'm really proud of this work. I'm really proud of this program. I'm proud of all of the women who come through it year after year. It's been something that has been such a joy and an honor to guide since 2019. There's a new cohort that's coming up in July. So I don't know when this is going to be landing, but it's something that I do continuously because I truly believe that this is like the foundational work for your entire life. Like, we invest so much in our businesses, we invest so much in our like education, but we don't invest in our own selves. We don't know how to make the right decisions. We don't know how to live a life that will actually make us fulfilled until we know who we really are, until we connect to our soul. And so it's like, I want people in it because I want to do the work that I love, but I also want people in it so that they can live this way for themselves. Because on the grander scale of things, I truly believe that the elevation of consciousness begins when we elevate our own consciousness individually. Like, as a collective, we grow when each and every one of us is shining at our brightest. There's no more comparison. There's no more competition. There's no more insecurity that drives people. It's a sense of like wholeness. It's a sense of offering your gifts and your truth. And that, I think, is how we affect really great change in the world, by aligning to our unique frequencies and allowing them to be what moves the tapestry of the world instead of like the consumerism and the competition that I think runs the majority of the free world.
It's a wonderful thing when you can do the work yourself and then grow and then share the healing that you've experienced with others. And then others can take that and do the same. So I think it's just this really beautiful ripple effect. And girl, you have done the work. You've done the work, $150,000 in self-development. So it sounds like an incredible program. Where can listeners find out more about you, about your coaching, all the great things you're doing?
Yeah, there's so many places. I mean, I feel like I'm all over the place. Instagram, I'm most receptive to because I'm in there more often. That's how we met. So Instagram is at leah.brathwaite. You can find my website, leahbrathwaite.com. Or if you want to find out specifically about the Live Free Lifestyle, it's the livefreelifestyle.ca. You can also link to it through leahbrathwaite.com. And then my book is available everywhere online. You can find it on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. It's called A New Way of Life, a guide for transformation from living a lie to freeing your soul. I think I'm also on YouTube.
All the places. We'll link them all on the show notes, but definitely, if you haven't already, pick up a copy of the book, guys. It's such a great read. It's not a long read either, too. Like, I read it really quickly. I went right through it, but it's both a memoir and a guidebook and just a really beautiful story. Leah, this has been such a great conversation. Thank you so much. I have one final question for you. For anybody who's listening who might be getting those nudges or that pull that there's something more out there for them, or that they just want to do something different with their life, what is a small first step that they could take to live more freely and authentically?
To honor that, to listen to that, and to take one small step. It doesn't mean you have to blow up your life. And that's what the Live Free Lifestyle is about. You don't have to blow up your life. Learning to take those small steps. So if it's something that you want to explore, whether it's like taking a class, going on a trip to a certain place, reaching out to a person, you strengthen your intuitive ability when you hear it and then you follow it and you listen and you act on it. It gets louder and louder. And like I said, it opens up that doorway. So if you're feeling really stuck, I would encourage you to just take a few moments to like close down your eyes, put your hand on your heart. You can put one on your belly, just breathe and ask, like, what would I love right now? What would I love to experience? And that will connect you to your heart. It gets your brain thinking in that sort of way. And that's one way that you can start to wake up that intuition. And then whatever that answer is, follow it. Even if it's like, I would love to, I don't know, go for a walk, or I would love to, mine are very specific. I'm like, I need to go to Starbucks and I need to order this specific type of drink. And when I do that, then I get the idea that I've been trying to work on for hours. So however small it is, just play with it, practice, and learn to trust yourself that way.
I love it. It doesn't have to be that serious. Just like take those little small steps and see where they lead you. Leah, thank you again. I'm so happy we connected. Like I said, I feel like we're soul sisters, and you're just such a beautiful reminder of what's possible when you realize that you don't have to live this life that's expected of you or that you think you should live. But when you let your soul lead the way, magical, magical things can happen and you can lead such a joy-filled, fulfilling life. So thank you for sharing your story and for having this conversation. And I'm just so excited to see what amazing things you do next.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And for you doing the same thing, for doing this work. Oh, I love it.
I appreciate you. Thank you. Thanks for listening to The Great Detour. If you're enjoying the show, I'd love if you could leave a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts. It really does help the show have a greater impact. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Have your own detour story? You can share it with me by visiting thegreatdetour.com or The Great Detour on Instagram. Thanks for taking this journey with me.